Tesla, in review of Dr. Russell's Universal One, said, you are 1,000 years ahead of your time. Man is not ready for this yet. You need to give it to the Smithsonian, have them put it in a time capsule, and have it opened in 1,000 years. Then man will be able to understand what you've given the world. That's pretty heavy.
Today's podcast is all about Walter Russell. If you don't have any idea who Walter Russell is, I guess we should probably start there. So also real quick, I think it's important for you to know the time period that we're talking about. What we're talking about is actually the time of Nikola Tesla. It's actually said that Nikola Tesla was friends with Walter Russell and they communicated a lot. And much of Walter Russell's work was actually during the 1920s and beyond. Walter Russell was this one who has been referred to as a cosmic illuminate. We're going to talk about what that means in a second. But what I want to say first is that this podcast is split into two parts. And so who we're going to be talking to at the start is the president and the operations manager. Okay. And so we have in the second part is going to be more about the science. We're going to talk to the science team and the science expert. And in the first part, it's more about the philosophy, the secrets, and an overall discussion about the creation and how he saw the universe. Now, Walter and Lau Russell created the University of Science and Philosophy, and everyone that we're going to talk to is from that university. I'm going to read to you from their website. I figured this is probably the best way for you to understand who this is going to be about and what they're actually claiming, because it is a big claim. And before I read this to you, I just want to say, I'm not claiming that this is facts, right? I'm just exploring that this could be a possibility. As you know on this podcast, or maybe you don't know this, but a big part of the podcast is to explore possibilities, right? We're going to agree on some things and disagree on other things. And for this, I'm not saying that I agree with everything. I'm not even taking a stance. I'm just saying this is an interesting thing. So what I am really hoping for this episode for you is to be able to just take this in and consider that this could be a possibility, that this is possible. Okay, again, I'm not claiming it is or it isn't, but I'm asking you to use your own discernment. So what is a cosmic illuminate? So this is what Walter Russell claimed to be. One who has become awakened to the light of God awareness in himself is known as an illuminate. One who is thus illumined by that divine light has become conscious of the cosmos. His mind has become universal instead of limited to what he sees, hears, and thinks. Illumination into cosmic consciousness is the ultimate goal of the human race. A rare few have already reached that stage during the 10,000 years of human history. It is time, therefore, that a university should be founded which sole purpose is to help those who feel the cosmic urge within them to know how to further unfold it. The entire curriculum of this university is patterned to that one objective. Okay, so now that'll give you a good kind of sense of where are they going. They're talking about cosmic consciousness. And so according to the University of Science and Philosophy, Walter Russell was one of the beings who reached the state of cosmic consciousness. And how I want to really, the importance of this, according to them, is that he was at the level of Jesus Christ. He was at the level of Krishna. He was at the level of the Buddha, who reached kind of this Christ consciousness, because Christ consciousness is a huge theme there. Now, I'm actually in this podcast, I'm actually at the museum. I went there for an experience that they had, and they asked me to come along and to check it out. And so I went. And so that's kind of a preface, some context to this. Again, discern for yourself, but I really invite you to explore the possibilities that the University of Science and Philosophy and the work of Walter Russell has to offer. Last thing here, we had to use a software enhancer on the mics because the fluorescent lights are really screwing with the audio. So if we sound robotic at times, that's why.
Well, there's a famous quote from Nikola Tesla that says, I don't mind people stealing my ideas, but what's so upsetting is that they don't have any of their own.
That really seems like it's the case sometimes.
Isn't that something?
Oh, man. All right, so we're here at the Russell Museum. Hopefully the volumes are good. We've got backups. We're traveling here. We're here in Waynesboro, Virginia. This place has been fascinating to me, and I think we really chose the perfect place to do the podcast because...
Did I move my big head?
A little bit. No, I'm just kidding. I think all the charts and everything in here are just phenomenal, and I think this is work that needs to be seen by the world, or it would be of benefit for people to know about what's happening here, you know?
So I'm curious, as someone who studied a lot of Nikola Tesla, and I think a lot of people are interested in Nikola Tesla. He seems to be gaining traction, and people know what he's doing and that stuff. So what do you guys think the connection is between Walter and Tesla to kind of give some background about it?
Jerry, go ahead. I'll come in behind you.
And we're talking to the president of the Russell Museum as well, and the operations manager.
Yes.
Well, Tesla, by the communications that we've seen and in the archives, is that they consider each other their spiritual mainstay. When they both were down on something, or their mind and they're upset, they would call each other and lift each other up.
Wow.
So that's huge. If there's not many people that are really that connected with Tesla that would say that he would be called when Tesla was upset and down. He would call him to lift him up.
Wow.
They did vice versa for each other.
So it's wonderful to know that they had that mutual respect. And you were here this week, Nick, when we were talking about illumination, right? And it was kind of like the least known of what we were talking about, and we gave that description. So I've read a lot about Tesla, and he doesn't use that word, but he tells you about him having flashes of light, and they could have been spontaneous, they could have been at length, and so on. But that's actually what was happening to him. He was having his own illuminations. I mean, look what Tesla did. Look what he gave to the world.
Yeah.
And so the respect he had for Walter Russell was that when he released the Universal One, Tesla had a chance to review it and so on, and said, "My God, man, you're 1,000 years ahead of the world. You got to lock it up."
So we actually said that.
Oh, yes. That's a definite quote. We have that in the archive somewhere, yes.
It's in the Telekinesis.
Let's say that whole quote so people know the gravity of that.
Tesla, in review of Dr. Russell's Universal One, said, you are 1,000 years ahead of your time. Man is not ready for this yet. You need to give it to the Smithsonian, have them put it in a time capsule, and have it opened in 1,000 years. Then man will be able to understand what you've given the world. That's pretty heavy.
Where do I go from there?
Well, so he released it. Okay. And so if we're going to talk about the Universal One, Jerry, we might as well just lay it out for him, right?
Yeah.
So,
you're good.
Matter of fact,
sometimes I'm going to get up and just look, just because it's one-man band, so I'm just going to kind of look around. So I'm right with you.
So just so that you folks know, a matter of fact, well, maybe we could just talk about this right here that I handed you. For the first time ever from our archives, I've given to Nick a document here, and this is a letter from Dr. Russell to Einstein saying, now Einstein was one of the scientists of the world of academia that rejected Dr. Russell's cosmogony. And here's what's interesting. When they were settling his estate, they opened up his desk drawer, and there's his copy of the Universal One. Publicly deny it, privately eating it up. So this letter, if I may, I'll just hold it up for you folks. This letter is where Dr. Russell says to Einstein, and I'm just going to surmise this, is that, look, if you're going to steal my science, at least get it right.
Wow.
Okay?
Yeah.
And but I think it's time. As president of the university, I have the discretion of going to the archives and saying, okay, is the world ready or is the world not ready? They're ready just to kind of know, this is two giants in the field of science.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you were saying behind us here, if people can see,
I can add images up on the screen so people can see the charts while you're.
I wanted people to know that in the background here, the posters that are in the black frame.
Yeah.
Prior to us reopening the museum in 2019, Mrs. Russell never let the world see them. She said, "Johnny, the world is not ready for this yet." Well, I lived at Swannanoa Palace with Mrs. Russell for 2 years, 1976, 77. And so she had a special, she had a studio off to the side of her room, and she just had drawings and so on hidden there that she just would not let the world see. So here they are now. It's time. And that's Jerry, remember when we first met Kimberly?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Once you share that with your watch and how she came up with that term, I think that's a good story.
Well, when she came here, she was so impressed and so inspired that she put this together, the idea of the Russell experience, and she was showing it to us, the whole thing, the whole gamut of how it's going to work and how it's done, and we were all just excited and looking at it, and she said something that, she said that it's time, and I had a very particular same experience about that, and I remember I was giving a pocket watch to my mentor, and he's passed away now, and it's probably my most prized possession. Yeah. It's material possession.
Sure.
And it's a very, very beautiful watch. It's down, I could show it to you, but it's very beautiful timepiece. It was a skeleton case, gold, and you can see all the workings of it. And it had 18 jewels in the back, that help run it. And it's very symbolic of the universal one, which had 18 dimensions. So, but I had a feeling, and the Lord wanted me to give this watch to Matt Presti. At this time, Matt Presti wasn't even the president of the university, and I don't think he was even director of operations yet.
So from what I hear, I'm going to talk to Matt as well. So
Correct.
This will be a 3-part part.
Say, Matt, where's that watch?
Yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll start it off.
Did you pawn it yet, Matt?
So it was very, very important to me, and I had an urge to give it to him, and I wrote a letter to him, and the Lord told me to tell me it's time. And then right after I gave him the watch, we started forming all the committees, science committees, the alumni committees, and then he became the director of operations, and then he became president, and from 14 to 17, it was like a whirlwind. And then we found this property in November of 17, and it took a year or two to acquire financially because of the paperwork and everything.
Sure.
And we got it in November of 18, but it took us a year to move in, and then we opened in 19. And
so this is still fresh information to the world.
Yes, correct. It's just brand new, and she said the same thing. The Lord told me to tell Matt it's time to get together and start. It's time to unveil this message again.
If I could, Nick, just to let your audience know that the most common question we get is,
perfect.
Why have I never heard of Walter Russell, or why have I never heard of the University of Science and Philosophy? And there was a concerted effort worldwide, from academia to politics to government, to shut him out, because and even the Catholic Church. You want to hear a great story?
Yeah, that's what we're here for. Is great stories.
Here's one out of the archives for you.
Okay.
And we have this in audio in Dr. Russell's own words.
Okay.
So he releases the Universal One, 1926. Took him 7 years to get it out. So I don't know the exact time, but we'll just say a couple months after it was released. So Dr. Russell gets a couple visitors in his Carnegie Hall studio in New York. And they say, "You Walter Russell?" "Yes. We're from the Vatican. And we've been sent here by the Pope to let you know that he has said that you are to never, ever reprint this book. And if you do, the Pope will issue a decree destroying you privately and professionally." And Dr. Russell never did reprint the Universal One. But now, guys, you have to forgive me. Yeah,
It's right.
I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah.
You're seeing history here too. This is one of the original 800 that Dr. Russell published, right here.
Wow.
Now we do in our archives, and it's not seen by very many people. Someday we'll do a broadcast. Wouldn't that be cool if we go to the archive and open up Dr. Russell's private Universal One, first one off the press with his name in big letters and so on. And on his wedding day with Leo Russell, he gifted that to her. It's a beautiful love story. You see the words of him giving his number one. I mean, it's history, right?
Yes.
The number one off the press. And so we're so glad to have that here at the museum. And matter of fact, guys, Jeremy is our tour guide, and we're so blessed here at the museum to have the first and last of some of Dr. Russell's paintings and sculpting pieces, which is kind of rare. So we're glad to have that.
So if that ever does happen, if we do end up doing that, which I have a feeling we might, check in the description of this episode, because we'll update that with the new episode and the continuation of the story, because I have a feeling this is going to be a story that unfolds continually as we go.
I like it.
So we're sitting here with Universal One, and we're sitting here with many charts. I think that for someone who's never heard of Walter Russell, I think the introduction we just gave is beautiful. It's many of the points of credibility and what happened to his work. So that then now the question in my mind is, what is the work? You know, where do you begin as someone who has never been exposed to the ideas of Walter Russell? You know, they're hearing that they're wild. What do you think it can be very simple. It doesn't have to be science. It can be just, what is the overall message?
Now, I just want to get clarity. So you're saying, how would I convey what the message is to a beginner?
Yes.
Being exposed to us for the first time?
Yeah, because I'm going to talk about science a lot. Well, I already talked to Scott for an hour.
Your ability to contact source. That would be the most.
Your ability to contact source.
Yeah. You know, we have a book that's called The Man Who Tapped the Secrets of the Universe.
I've read that, yeah.
It's inexpensive. It's an easy read, but that'll pretty much give you a great introduction to Walter Russell. But let me try to surmise his life, what he is and what he was to do.
It's hard to do, by the way.
All right.
I understand.
So I'm just saying, 48 years, behind me.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I came here, and it wasn't like he was just doing one thing.
No.
Sculptures, art.
He mastered the five fine arts.
This will put it in perspective for your audience.
To support today's podcast and the podcast in general, check out today's sponsor, Wabam! My book, 10 Secrets of Awakening. The secrets to understanding consciousness, life transformation, and self-realization. If you're ready to transform the way you perceive and interact with this reality, this book is for you. Available as a paperback or an ebook on Amazon. Check it out. Link is in the description. Back to the podcast.
So Jeremy, myself, his family, and the staff and some friends, we went to the National Gallery of Art this summer in D.C. Magnificent building. And man, I'll tell you, I got shocked because I saw a series of original Monets. And, wow. Because you just see them in books, you see pictures of it. But man, when you saw that color right up front,
originals, yeah.
So it was a great trip. And if I may say it, I'm not trying to embarrass Jeremy, but
you don't have to.
that visit changed him. It moved him to see that beauty and that artwork and all of it condensed. Not that he hadn't seen it here, but just to see it elsewhere other than here. And it was wonderful for me, just as a friend and an associate, to see that transition. And I'm so proud of him.
Yeah. But anyway, being able to see Rembrandt's and Monet's and Renoir's, the originals, not the ones that are just, like replicas, and the originals. It was just, because, I see originals here, but you see the most famous, and Walter was up there with them. And it was just, I've never seen them up close. And I was, I wonder if Walter could actually compete with them and everything. So, but when I actually saw them, it was just amazing to be able to.
We came back from that trip. And then Jeremy and I come in, we usually get about the same time in the morning. And we walk through the front doors and we looked up and we go, yeah, not bad for one guy, huh, Jeremy? This museum could fill the National Gallery of Art. One guy. But what I'm trying to say to your audience is the National Gallery of Art is filled with hundreds of artisans.
Yeah.
One guy, Mrs. Russell, when I lived with her, she told us that this was only 4% of Dr. Russell's production that she could get her hands on. But this 4% is pretty powerful, isn't it, Jeremy?
Yeah. Over 20,000 square feet.
Wow.
So you asked me to comment on what is the message.
Yeah.
Okay. So might be a little uncomfortable for some of your audience. I don't know, but I'm thinking
probably not, because we explore.
I was going to say,
we get into the deep.
Because if you're sitting here, I'm thinking your audience is ready.
We're here for it.
Yeah, Walter said the greatest thing I could teach you is your ability to contact your creator, the source, the universe, semantics. But
Mhm.
and
Whatever you
be
wanna
able
call
to
it.
do that, he says, if I could just teach you that, to be able to go to stillness, because all questions are answered in the light, he said.
Isn't that a beautiful quote?
And through that, you don't have to read billions of hours and hundreds of hours of books to get answers. You just go to the source to do that. And I'm just amazed that, because my background is psychology, and be able to think that you could just think of something and ask a question and you can answer something without any knowledge of it, that it just blows my mind psychologically, that you can answer a question you have no knowledge of and answer it within. And it just is such an amazing feeling that you can do that. And that's your greatest gift, is Walter would say, before you go to bed, put something on your heart, a question that you want answered. And he said, it will be answered. It may take time. Some may be instantly. And some may take months, weeks, years, whatever, but it will be answered depending on your desire, your potential of desire. So the more desire that you have for it, the answer will be answered quickly.
So a preface to the message thing. So I just want to let you know that Dr. Russell was always approached, and people would ask him, because they could see his genius. It was, right?
It was apparent.
How could I, be like you, or what separates me? How could I be a genius like you, Dr. Russell? And this is, then Jeremy's statement will tie into this. And Dr. Russell would hold his hand up and he would look at him. And he said, the difference between you and I is about that much. And that's how much more aware of the light within, the God light within, that separates me from you. So once you become aware of that light within, all things are possible. So, but people, they want to sit back and they go, oh, I could never do that.
I want to look up to someone and then worship that person.
Oh, yeah. And you don't want to do that. Only one person you should ever look up to or ask a question to, and that's the Creator. But, and what we, and I must say this. So here's the separation point between our teachings, the message here, and all that's out in the world, okay? Religions of the world teach of an external God. You're praying to this God, out there, wherever, As a kid, I could never figure that out, right? I'm like, well, man, how big is this guy anyway, right? I mean,
I'm with you.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
Yeah, it just never, it just doesn't make sense, right? But that's what our teachings do. We teach you of the divine within, that there is no separability between you and your Creator. And the moment that you accept that, Mrs. Russell had a beautiful quote, the most difficult thing for any human being is to discover their divinity, then live it. So once you find that, and then you go, oh, wow, God and myself, we're one and the same. I have the same ability. I can tap into that power. And once you realize that, game changer. Your world changes. Leah would always say that you could live either a purposeful or purposeless life. Choice is yours. And when you become aware of the divine within, now your life becomes purposeful.
So when you say divine, that word is used by many cultures, traditions, and there's many interpretations of that word. So I'd like to go into a little bit of your thoughts on that process behind the use of that wording.
Isn't that great, Jeremy? We got the Divine Iliad, right? Volumes 1 and 2. You want to talk? You go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So it's beautiful you bring that up. I'm sorry.
Make sure when you're turning, just because I know people are going to get salty in the comments.
Yes.
If you're turning, it sucks because you're in the middle. You got to turn the mic with you if you can.
Okay.
So if you're going, follow that. Thanks.
It's only my second podcast.
I know. Hey, it's okay. I'm just trying to help.
Well, Nick, that's a great question. It's beautiful. And matter of fact, that's the starting point.
Mm-hmm.
That's the starting point. So for your audience, Dr. Russell received illumination every 7 years of his life. The age of 13, he was diagnosed with what they termed the Black Plague. Ate his throat out, and the doctor came over, pronounced him dead. Sheet over him. The parents walked the doctor out to the horse and carriage, and they're settling him up with the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And in that illumination, God bestowed upon Dr. Russell the secrets of healing. And before the doctor could get in the carriage, Dr. Russell walks out of the house. It's like, hey, guys, what's going on? Completely cured, as if nothing ever had happened. Yes. So,
wow.
So every 7 years of Dr. Russell's life, these illuminations became more intense, right? And on his 49th birthday, Dr. Russell, figure this one out. I don't know how God and Dr. Russell worked this out, but every illumination came on his birthday, May 19th.
Birthday month.
Birthday month, yes. And so on his 49th birthday, Dr. Russell had what we call his grand illumination. It lasted 39 days and nights. Okay? Now, you know, the big guy spent 40 days in the desert.
He did.
You know what I mean by the big guy? Jesus, right? Yeah.
Jesus, still.
So we always joke back and forth.
Yeah.
And
He almost made it to 40.
Yeah,
so close.
Right. But if I may, and I'll come back to the illumination part.
Yeah.
But here's what I want to share with the audience. We have this giant 12-foot Christ figure in our lobby. Yeah. And we try to tell people when Jeremy's giving tours, he lets people know that this is not a religious symbol. Okay? What this is, he is there to represent the fifth level of understanding of what the Russells called Christ consciousness. Okay, and it's in our home study course. It's in Mrs. Russell's book, Why You Cannot Die. And so that is the ultimate that any of us as human beings can attain on this physical plane is Christ consciousness. So both Dr. Russell and his wife Leo were 360-degree cosmic conscious illuminates. Science says that there's 5,500 bands to the 360 degree of light. Okay? And so both Dr. and Leo Russell could see all 360 degrees of light.
So what can we see? How many?
10 to 12 degrees.
I think that puts it in perspective.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now, if we can continue that.
Yeah.
So we have a poster right over here that shows that light, that spectrum, that man is
Can we
sense
put that
range.
up on the screen if you guys are okay with that?
And you see it widens. So that area would be like genius. Okay? So now genius, he's just simply hearing and seeing things that you can't. You don't. And then the genius can't see, can't understand what the mystic knows. And the mystic can't understand what the illuminate knows. And as magnificent as Leo and Dr. Russell was, they couldn't even begin to understand Christ consciousness. But that's where we're all headed. Okay?
So there's mystic is a level, and you're saying illuminate is a level above?
Yes.
And then
State of awareness, yes.
So the Christ consciousness is the
That's
pinnacle. I think that's important to just take a second to even solidify, because we're not saying that Christ is the pinnacle, but rather we're taking the consciousness level that he achieved.
You got it.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So Christ, Jesus, Yeshua ben Joseph was the greatest scientist of all time. Could control matter with his thinking, right? Ascension was a piece of cake. He would come and go, disappear, and his disciples were like, did you guys see him? Did he? I mean, you can see him. Yeah, where'd he go this time?
Yeah, he could transmute water to wine, walk on
Alchemy,
water.
in a sense?
Yeah. So there was nothing that he couldn't do with
Yes, the elements.
Physicality.
yeah.
And our chief science officer, Darren, who will become emeritus, okay, for us, because he's moved on. That means that he still has that title
lifelong title.
But it's a lifelong title that he carries with him, whether he goes in the private sector or not.
Okay.
Because that's where he got his beginning, is with us.
Mm-hmm.
So we had this great conversation back in the summer. We had some guests come visit, and we were sitting there at the conference table. Now, Darren doesn't usually divulge, get into some heavy science discussion, but it was amazing. And Darren was able to explain to us the science behind how Jesus could have people and how he could walk on water. What was actually happening, the science behind it. And once you know it, not like a piece of cake, right? But if you've never,
I mean, I don't know. You tell me. Are you? I mean,
I can't walk on water. All right.
What are you saying? If it's that easy, why are you?
Well, yeah, right. So, but that's why.
That's the difference between information and knowledge.
Yes, Jeremy.
Because you can memorize things and have the whole book figured out and repeat it, but being able to express it is a whole different thing. Yeah. And that's like walking with God instead of logic and reason. And that's where the Garden of Eden was, and that's where that came from, is, before the temptation of Adam and with the apple, he walked the good and evil. That was logic and reason. So that's our true knowledge comes from walking with God, the source, not from logic and reason, because our senses and layers of the Bible that we learn.
Yeah.
So your question, though, about the divine.
Yeah.
Okay. So in this 39-day and night illumination, try to imagine this. So you see a light that's 10,000 times 10,000 the brilliance of the sun with your inner eyes. And with your inner ears, these are the first words you hear. You, my son, will be my next messenger to mankind. And if man needs science to know me, I'll make you the master scientist. If man needs art to know me, I'll make you the master artisan, and so on. And so Dr. Russell's knowledge was God-given, and that's why academia rejected it. You see, they're like, well, hey, the guy he barely made it past 4th grade. Why are we reading a book that he wrote? But he got his knowledge from source. And see, that's the big fault. That is, that the world has made, that the scientific world has made, is they do not want to include the Creator in creation. They want to leave him out. Can't be. How's it possible? It cannot be. So that's where the science that Dr. Russell was given in his illumination, that's what's within our home study course. That's what's in all the books that the Russells have written, individually, collectively. But what's beautiful is, at the end of this 39-day and night illumination, now try to just put your hat on this statement. So the secrets of the universe have been revealed to Dr. Russell. And God says, what I have given thee is but a thimble of your ocean. So here I am, a 48-year student. Every time I hear that statement, there's no way you can't fathom that statement of what is to come for us in regard to knowledge of what there is.
The science has got like a...
Yeah. That's what they're telling. He even had it, and that's what when Jesus said that what I can do, you can do also, and more. And that was the point of that, is that we all have the potential to be great and have the answers. And when we connect with Source, we can do greater things than even Christ.
So at the end of the 39-day illumination, okay, Dr. Russell struggles, comes back from the other side through all 9 gates. So when I say 9 gates for your audience, I'm going to help them a little bit. The 9 gates are the inert gases. Jesus said there are many mansions, is that right? In my Father's kingdom. And so each inert gas is another world. It's another universe.
Is it universe? Or...
Yes.
Okay.
Now, when I say that...
You mean like a multiverse? Or are you talking about like octaves in one universe?
For example, so we're in the 4th octave, the carbon octave. So to simplify it for your audience, so when we burn anything, what's its final?
It would get transformed.
It's carbon, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like carbon. That's it.
Okay.
What's the hardest substance in the universe?
The hardest substance? I don't know.
Diamond. Your carbon. And the reason it's the hardest substance in the universe is because its poles have been flattened to flat. You can't flatten anything more than flat, right? So the 9 gates, so if we're going from 0 to 9, okay, so there is a winding up from the ether. I think science is good with that word. That's what they call it.
Yeah. Well, sometimes
Yeah.
they didn't for a while.
Yeah.
And rejected the concept of it, but I think they're starting to
Semantics.
contemplate.
Yeah. So Dr. Russell charts 23 elements in 1921 prior to hydrogen.
That preceded.
Okay.
We're still
haven't found those yet.
Say that again. So because that's important to me when I studied the Russell work was that didn't he discover elements before?
That preceded hydrogen, deuterium, and tritium. He had on when he published Universal 1, he copyrighted it, and he placed all the elements, even today, that we all discovered.
As nature, as God has them lined up, not like Mendeleev did it.
Yeah. He had it, aligned by mass and weight, and as you can see, you'll be able to see the chart. And he predicted where all of they were, and he went to Westinghouse and he spoke lectures, Union Carbide and all that, and he explained to them where they were. He says that elements are very much like tones. They can be split, and from there you can get other elements from them. And splitting hydrogen, you can get deuterium and tritium. Uranium, you can get neptunium, plutonium. He called them different names in his chart, which he copyrighted. And as you can, you'll be able to see in the chart that.
What's amazing about what he's saying about that Westinghouse experiment, Dr. Russell did it 17 times for them.
You might explain what experiment.
I remember from what you said before.
Yeah,
but
he did a transmutation experiment with water
right in front of their eyes. 17
in front of
times.
Westinghouse.
Yeah, with all the scientists.
And what did it do with water?
And it vaporized the water into gas, and he could control which gas he wanted by being able to dial in where it is, like a radio station, and he could get any type of gas he wanted. And he did it 17 different times, and they were just so perplexed that he could choose which gas he wanted from that vial of water. And from that, it was just, they pretty much just said it was contamination. They said they just didn't believe it.
No.
Yeah. Even after 17, but that's what happens when you're advanced.
Yeah.
Like Tesla, he was so advanced that in 1890, when they were just putting wires up to send wires, he was like, well, I already figured out how to do it wirelessly. And people were just perplexed that he could, that was even capable. I mean, in 1903, they thought there was an article that was written that in 1903 that said, if everyone on Earth focused on all the scientists focused on trying to fly, we'll figure out how to fly in 1,000,000 years or something like that, or 1,000 years. And in the next year, Wilbur and them figured it out. And then 60-something years later, they go to the moon. But who would have thought we'd be able to go to the moon in 60 years from not even be able to fly? And that's what will happen when science gets together and they really understand the fundamentals of reality. And from that, we'll be able to go exponentially. From the moon, from flying to the moon in 60 years, we'll be able to do that. And we've seen that just in some 1960 to now, how technology has grown. Just imagine if they really understood the principles, how much. And
to add to Jeremy's point, now I don't know the age of your audience,
all over,
but I'm sure people are aware of Star Trek.
Yeah.
Now you got now when I was growing up as a kid, I had the first one, right? Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner and so on. But Gene Roddenberry, he had it. So the And so I'm going to hit you with some philosophical, and I'm going to hit you with some science. Okay. So the beauty of like the replicator, the beauty of that is it removed greed from man's thinking. Because you could create anything you want, right?
There was no supply and demand anymore.
Yes.
So you could supply anything.
And that was where you could replicate anything?
Yeah.
Yes.
Transmute pretty much.
Yes.
For free?
Oh yeah, because the machine, like,
Because there might be some people who haven't seen that. So I'm going back a little
the
bit.
new one, the next generation was Picard and so on. And so Picard would say, hey, just give me my Earl Grey tea with a little bit of whatever, and you'd see the thing, and there's the cup of tea.
You think it's possible?
Yes. Well, we're already doing it with the help me out, Jeremy. The
3D printers.
3D printers.
There's always stages of any kind of technology.
And look, just look at
Just
Alexa,
like wires to wirelessly.
right? You say to Alexa, "Hey, play me such and such," right? So it's all light. So that's audio. So why can't we just take the audio and then we just
Everything is just
condense the waves and
when we get that, when we realize that,
What's going on then? Why can't what? Well, this is so called.
this is no different. This is no different than anything else than radio waves. It's no different. And once we realize that, we'll be able to manifest our desires even more.
And here,
Because that's the point.
Well, here's another.
We think there's restrictions, and there's not.
When I was a kid, go to school, and people that would watch Star Trek, and they would flip open their communicator, right?
There it is.
It always starts as an idea, and then from there, it gets manifested.
So when you say, I want to go back to a term that you said earlier. You said when science understands the fundamental reality. And so I'm curious to go into what that fundamental reality means. Like to you guys, and to maybe to Walter's work, what are the fundamentals that they should know? Because what if science is like, all right, they're watching the podcast, they're like, all right, well, tell me the fundamentals then. So I'm curious.
Well, that's really a difficult question.
Yeah, I mean, like is there at least maybe
You want me to take it?
one or two?
Get you started?
Like for example, I see in some of the charts, we see gravity is huge in the Walter system. We see light is huge, and how like the fundamentals of how things work in the Walter, maybe we call it cosmology.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Here's one for you.
Sure.
Back on the wall here, you'll see that Mother Nature uses 9 lenses to create spheres. So here's a trick question we always ask people. Is the sun hot or is the sun cold? Of course, everybody's going to say, well, hell, that's a dumb question. The sun's hot. But if you knew that the lenses that comprise the sun and any spherical mass, that all it is doing is condensing, compressing light waves and radiating that out, but the sun itself, cold. Now, your science boys are going to struggle with that one a little bit, but it's right over here on this chart. Those 2 charts right there will show it to you. So God uses concave, convex, biconcave, and biconvex lenses to create spheres. Now,
When you say lens, can you just
like an
that
optical
concept?
lens, just like,
Yeah.
Just
like a camera lens? Is that
camera lens?
I just want to get that.
So concave, right? Biconcave means the lens is curved on and then the convex, then it goes outward.
Mhm.
And then the sequence in which they align is how your creator takes light and condenses and gives us matter. It's real simple. This is beautiful. Dr. Russell, because people would ask him all the time, right, Jeremy? And sometimes people come in here, they just get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I say, guys, look, relax. Dr. Russell said, if you can read and if you can count to 9, you can master the secrets of the universe. So all this quantum physics stuff and all these elaborate equations and so on, trying to discover this, that, all this, you're wasting your time. It's that simple.
Okay.
God and nature is so simple if man would just observe
So when you say
how nature does it.
So when you say wasting your time on quantum, I'm curious as to what do you think the difference is between Walter Russell's work and quantum field theory?
They just keep taking it, and they keep going further,
Dividing.
further, and further. So I'll give you an example of a kaleidoscope, right? You're looking at that kaleidoscope, and every time you turn it, you see a different pattern, right? Well, effect, just like these phones will take you as deep in here as you want to go. And you can
never stop
come
scrolling.
out. That's it.
Or yeah.
You right?
Sure.
All right. And that's the same thing with effects.
Yeah.
Effects will take you to the complexity of, the ends of the universe. But
Like if you keep looking, you'll keep finding. Is that what you're saying?
yes,
Correct. Keep dividing. Just like, the Hadron Collider, they'll just keep more, the faster they send it, and they'll bust, they'll find new, and it'll keep dividing, and they'll keep finding new.
we have a device back here, the general radiative. Well, you can't see the boxes from here. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I apologize to your audience.
I'll take a picture.
But Dr. Russell created that
Mhm.
in the 50s. And it makes a nuclear reactor obsolete. And just by coiling copper wires in the sequence that God built the universe. So if you know that step down process, right? That conical step down process,
No, it's simple.
it is this.
Yeah.
And see, that's where people get hung up because they're looking for
The only thing that changes is just volume from like the base of a cone to the tip of the cone. The power is the same, like a magnet. Say a magnet with its conical. There's power on the tip is really strong, right? But on the base, it's really weak. But really, it's the same amount of power. All it changes is volume. Just like a solid turning into gas, and like an apple collecting together from its seed to an apple, it's collecting materials to become an apple, and then it becomes solid weight. And then from that solid weight, it drops to the ground. And then when it drops to the ground, it starts decaying. And then it goes back to the gases. So all it's done is change its volume from the seed to the apple to the most compressed, the apple. And then after it reaches full maturity, it starts to die, falls down, and then it goes back to where it began, to the seed. So the gas, all it's ever changed is the volume. I try to explain how all the states of motion is kind of like a baseball. Everything is made from light. A baseball, depending on you rotate it and how much velocity and where you release it, it'll manifest a different state of motion, like a knuckleball, a slider, a curve. But it's still the baseball. Everybody will think there are whole different types of pitches, but we see these different items and material substances, but it's the same thing. It's light. It's just spinning at different rotations, different velocities, and that's when you see cymatics and all that. But you'll see the higher the frequency, the more complexity there is to it.
Okay, so
the senses are the greatest deceiver of man. For example, right behind us, you got the sphere, which is the crystal ball.
yeah, so we're looking at the sphere
And the
lens.
cube, if you'll just allow me to call the cabinet, the glass cabinet, the cube.
Yeah.
Those are the only two substances there are. Everything else in the universe is a complexity of it. Now, Jeremy and I put this together. Now, you're sitting in the right spot. Now, if you look at that crystal, right, and can you see the colors and the way? Now, move left, move right, move forward, backwards. Now, you see it moving?
Yeah.
Okay. But ain't nothing moving. Okay.
It's your perception.
Yeah, that's your perception. You're seeing those waves collapse and expand and intersect, right?
Yeah, because it's reflecting. What is it?
There you go. No, there's a little the octave wave painting in the back, just so that your audience knows. The ones in the further back is the very first scientific drawing that Dr. Russell did after he released the Universal One.
I think it's hard for people to comprehend that.
We'll show a little short video and add to it on what he's seeing, and then from there we'll explain it, and you'll be able to understand it.
Yeah, I just think it's hard for people to even comprehend that art can be scientific.
How about
You know
that?
what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you don't really see that often.
If I may, I want to just finish your question about the divine.
Absolutely.
And isn't it wonderful that, so Dr. Russell was commanded to give this knowledge to the world. This is God's, like, who knows how many attempt to awaken mankind to him, to himself, right? So Dr. Russell comes back through the 9 gates, finally gets back into his body.
Octaves too? Gates?
Yes.
Octave? Okay.
Gates, octave, same thing.
Okay.
Same thing. So Dr. Russell writes 2 volumes called The Divine Iliad. Isn't that beautiful?
That's a good name for a book.
30,000 words without a correction or an erasure. And the meter, it's poetry. The Divine Iliad is poetry. It's the meter in which our Creator thinks. And when you read it, it takes you a few pages to get into God's thinking, to that meter, and then it flows and comes.
Yeah.
So I just wanted, it took me a long time to get there with your divine question, but I thought that was a beautiful tie-in that the message actually comes from. It's called The Message of the Divine Iliad.
Just imagine that, you were inspired one day and you wrote all your book in one day with no erasers. That's Walter's Divine Iliad. He was inspired through that inspiration, through that illumination. He was inspired for 39 days, and all this artwork came from it. And just like, like if you were inspired and you wrote that book in one day, that's what, when John is saying about he was inspired and through that illumination, he wrote it. Walter was so talented that he could condense 40,000 words into one day without erasure. He was very gifted. And we can do that. We're able to do it. Mozart was able to do it. All the great musicians, even all inspiration comes from there. It's the same source. It's no different what Walter had. It's like you wake up and you're inspired to write anything, or you just get this idea that comes in your head. It's no different than what Walter had. It's just at different levels. He just was able to filter it better. And the more you're more aware of that connection with the source, you'll be able to express it better. And Walter was very good at expressing it. As you can see through only the 3% that's in this museum, 3 to 4% that he did, he could express it very well. Because just imagine if he wasn't a great painter, an illustrator, if he experienced that experience, he wouldn't have been able to express it. So this is why it's very important to be able to draw, to write, and know these things, because if you do get inspired, you'll be able to express it a lot better.
Music.
Yeah, that's correct. That's why he was a master of the 5 fine arts. Because
I don't even think people know what that means. So you got to explain the 5 fine arts.
John did that.
Yeah.
Well, you have, let's see, we have
Painting,
sculpting, poetry,
architecture,
and I think science is part of those 5 fine arts. And that's what he was given. And now, how do you like this one? So
Keep going. I'm just going to make sure.
Yes. So in Dr. Russell's illumination, he's been given all this knowledge, and God pretty much prepares him. He says, look, you are going to get crucified like the last guy I sent, but now I'm just being humorous here on a serious subject.
I mean, he was definitely verbally and societally.
Well, all great minds get crucified
in their time. They're never recognized in their time.
Just like Socrates and any great mind that thinks forwardly is going to be crucified, because they're going to, even scientists today, they'll fight over each other. They'll publish something new, and then they'll just rip each other apart, because that, challenging authority is really difficult, and
Probably difficult for you guys here.
No, not at all. No, because when you represent truth, it's a piece of cake. We fear nothing. We don't. All right. So why would we fear people knowing?
I have not read this.
This, what Dr. Russell wanted to say to Einstein. He wrote him a letter and said, hey,
Remember it here in a sec.
yeah.
We'll give you a sec, but there's a lot of interesting. Go ahead. Sure.
Just so the audience knows, I'm 68, so it can, come and go a little quicker.
It does for me too.
Your creator had a sense of humor, and Leo reinformed me that, reassured me that God does have a sense of humor, okay? So God says, now look, mankind. Now, you're going to get crucified along the way. So you just have to envision, God kind of reaching over and saying, now, you do this for me, and you're
Like any great scientist, then.
so what's left, he gave him the thimble, but once he gets to the other side, God will reveal to him.
He did. Right. At this
Well,
point.
we're going to assume that God kept his word.
All right. That's a good point.
Oh,
That's definitely a good point because he couldn't.
oh.
And so when you say God, I think there's a lot of mention of God in Walter's work. And as someone who was raised in a Christian type environment, I feel like there's a lot of usage of that word for war and for things that they were divine messengers of God. And a lot of people have, unfortunately, unfolded, refolded, third try.
That's all right. You got your quarter's worth, though.
So if that's what you call death, essentially, right?
Yes.
That's what we're getting at. So how do you, as someone who it's difficult when we have divine messengers to know if it's truth, if it's not truth, because a lot of people claim that. Did you ever struggle with that kind of concept?
You want to hit him with the great quote? The Russells, Dr. Russell, Leo, all great minds would say that light recognizes light. It's that simple. That's what God is. God is undivided light. Okay? And when thinking begins, creation begins. Then God takes his undivided light, puts it into motion, 4 pairs of rings, and then there's a sequence to that, and that sequence allows material stuff to come into our sensed range, okay? And then it goes out of our sense range. But man calls it death, right? It just went out of our sense range. I'll give your audience something to research, okay?
Sure.
This might blow their minds.
Okay.
Because I had never read anything like this.
Mm-hmm.
So, Dr. Russell was great friends with Mark Twain. Mark Twain had a daughter, Sarah Clemens.
Clara.
I beg your pardon. She married a composer and pianist, Osip Gabrulowitz. So Dr. Russell, Mark Twain, Clara Gabrulowitz, they were really spiritual friends. And they would get together at Dr. Russell's place, Mark Twain's home, whatever. So anyway, Osip passes away, and it devastates Clara Clemens. And she's really good friends with Dr. Russell, so he's one of the first people she reached out to. She said, will you help me reach out to Osip? And Dr. Russell said, no, I won't do it. He said, you're not ready. So he kind of thought about it for a few days, and then he reached back out to her and he says, okay. He says, I'm going to do it for you. But he says, I'm going to withhold certain things because you're not ready to understand it. And the first time I read this letter, it's an 18-page letter, and we have it on our website. Jeremy, help me. You log in, philosophy.org.
There's a search.
Archives. Is it archives?
Yes, there's
Philosophy.org.
Yeah, just go to the search bar at the bottom if you can't find it.
And it's like eight down. You'll see the Clara Clemens letter. For the first time in the course of human history, I believe in writing, someone is telling you in detail what's happening on the other side. Verbatim. Okay?
You're saying the afterlife?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And this is what caught me right from the beginning. is Dr. Russell said, now listen, the reason you have not been able to reach Osip, or you think that he's not listening, but where he is, it is so beautiful. It is beyond his understanding that he just doesn't have time to think of you right now. But he said he will. Okay? So, and Dr. Russell goes on and on, but this is the part that, blew my mind, okay? Because I use the term doc. I kind of personalize Dr. Russell.
Sure. Yeah.
So Dr. Russell says to her, because she was quoting another philosopher or spiritual person that she respected, and he said, listen, he said, he never made it past the fourth gate, the fourth octave of understanding, his illumination. And Dr. Russell tells her there's only been 3 people in the course of history that have ever left their body, go through all 9 gates, and make it to the other side, to the big guy. Then come back through the 9 gates, get back into your body. Okay? He said it was Krishna, Jesus, and himself. I thought, wow, man, that's a bold statement. Put yourself in that category. But he tells her, he said, the reason, there's a common phrase, been there, done that. That's what he pretty much says to her.
Yeah.
I did it, okay? I went through all 9 gates, talked to the big guy, came back, got in the money, and delivered it for you. So anyway, but that's an amazing letter. So if your audience would have that kind of
I want to, yeah, I'm intrigued.
In the wording and what he just, and it's not, it's a little bit scientific in some parts.
Well, we like that too.
Yeah. But, but for the layman as well, it's incredible. You'll never find it anywhere else in the world in any literature. Who's going to tell you what's happening on the other side?
So what's happening on the other side?
Well, that'll be the next broadcast.
To be continued, folks.
Yes, to be continued.
We'll be back. But all right, I think we've hit a lot of beautiful subjects today. I just wanted to say thank you both for hanging out with me and taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it and the knowledge that you relayed. Now I've got one more question for each of you to answer, and that would be if you had one concept that you thought, this is what I feel like is the most powerful in my own life that I take with me from the work of the Russells, what would be the one that you'd want to share with people that could maybe impact their lives in a way that was transformative?
For me, having that understanding of my oneness and with our Creator. So my number one thing is beauty. I'm a sunrise, sunset guy. And that starts my day or ends my day. And in that silence, as I'm observing the sunrise and the sunset, and to see that beauty, I simultaneously thank God as it's unfolding, all the way until the colors disappear. And so that's what anchors me. That's what allows me to keep going day to day. And the Russells talk about that in the teachings of that's one thing that's missing in the world is beauty. But that's what centers me. That's what I take from the teachings every day.
And that's what separates us from the animals is art and beauty.
That is correct, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Yes, that is the one thing that separates man from the animal kingdom is art.
Man, now I got more questions. But that's okay. That's okay. Go ahead.
Well, you'll be able to, at night, and just find your peace and stillness. It could be in the tub. It could be washing dishes. It could be anything. And just finding that stillness and knowing that you can get to, if you're really angry or upset, and we all get it, none of us are beyond, anger and resentment and all that thing. So be able to know that you can just find that stillness and go to it, and it's always there. You're able to go to the fulcrum and do it. It's it's a blessing because we can all let our emotions get a hold of us, and being able to know that you can go to stillness and then correct it, and going to bed at night and just asking for, for answers or questions, and be able to get those answers is the two greatest things you can do. You don't have to do it at night. You can do it, of course,
like
during
you said,
the day.
putting a question in your heart.
Yeah, you can do it during the day, and those two things is finding stillness, but it's the same thing. It's going to source. And when you go to source, you get all the answers, and then you'll be able to calm down. And because when the more overextended you are, the more mistakes you can make. Because Walter said that the more you live in your senses, you experiment, and when you experiment, you make mistakes. And the more you can go to source and find, you won't make mistakes. And because when you don't want to make like financial decisions when you're upset and angry or those kind of things.
Yeah.
So that's the point of trying to find balance, and that's what the home study course that we offer talks about is rhythmic balance interchange, and finding that balance and trying to always searching for balance in every situation in life that you do, because it's so important. Because if you can extend your balance to someone else, if your wife comes home, she's upset, and not feeding that fear and voiding it, and because that's very important, not feeding the fear and the anger, because that's what love truly is, because love does not give off fear. Love is just pure, and knowing that you can void that for someone, and doing that is very important for your spouse or your friend or any relationship that you're in. It's best to show love and do that, and not show fear, which is really probably the most important that we can do for each other, is to love each other and do that, and try to cancel that fear in each other's.
All right. Well, thank you very much again. Now, we're at the museum. Where are we? Well, how can people come here? What's going on here? How can people participate, kind of learn, and kind of get involved? What you got?
Here we are, 2 years in. We're at 518 West Main Street, Waynesboro, Virginia. This building is huge. It's 33,000 square feet, and we filled it with Dr. Russell's artwork.
You have, yes.
Right?
It's full.
And only 3%. So I don't know if we got 6%. I don't know what we would do.
Yeah, we have a lot downstairs that needs to be repaired also.
Yes.
Okay.
So we give tours by appointment only.
Okay.
Okay.
So you can't just come in whenever, right?
Well, we won't reject anybody. If you're standing at the front door and you're going, we're going to let you in, okay?
Yeah.
But so 1-800-882-LOVE is our phone number.
So set up an appointment if you want to come out.
And then philosophy.org.
Which is a great domain name.
Yes, and it has the Russell Museum stuff there. But if I may, with your permission, I would like to leave your audience with a little wisdom.
Sure.
That I've gathered.
Sure.
And that is, whatever brings you the greatest joy in your life, do it. And do it without hesitation, do it without reserve, and just enjoy. See beauty in everything, and watch your life transform. Share that with you.
There it is. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Nick.
Also, for anyone interested, I came to one of the pilots, the last pilot of the Russell Museum, Russell Experience is what it's called,
Yes.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to make sure I get the terminology right on stuff. And so you're going to be doing more of those, and whenever that comes out, or if we have more information, I'll have a direct link in the description for anyone interested in coming to an experience that is more of a curated, we're doing many different things, activities, instead of just coming and looking around. How can you get guided into the deep work of Russell?
Yes.
And so
workshop. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Workshop. That's a good word too. So when those workshops are active, do you have any planned right now, or is it still kind of up in the air when the next one is?
There are 4 more planned for this year.
Okay.
And they're fantastic. So we do have the dates, but we'll have to we'll get them to you. As a matter of fact, you work with Kimberly direct anyway, so just ask her to give those to you.
Okay, we'll put those dates on the screen, or we'll put them below too as well.
Yes.
That sounds good. All right.
Well, thanks again.
Thank you, Nick.
Put it
An
in
honor. Thank you to your audience, too, for
Yes.
bearing with us.
I hope everyone enjoyed. I know some of these concepts are brand new because the work hasn't been around. I'm still learning. I'm still taking in, and I hope you just do your own research, come to your own conclusions, read the books. Is what I've been told many times throughout this entire experience is you got to read the books. So
And go to stillness.
And go to stillness. You're right. Balance. Rhythmic balance. Interchange. Fulcrum. All right. Thanks. Until the next episode of Universe the Game. Peace. All right. I just quickly wanted to let you know that this podcast is sponsored by my book, 10 Secrets of Awakening. The book is about understanding consciousness, how to transform your life, and self-realization. If you're interested in these topics, check out the book. It's available on Amazon as ebook or paperback. So we're here at the Russell Museum. We've got the nice background here. One of my favorite Russell paintings, but I know that you're an how would you, I don't know, expert? You know, you studied the Russell work, let's just say that.
Yeah. I consider myself just a student of the Russell work. You know, I've been studying, well, I'll give you a little background.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So, you know, I've been studying theoretical physics probably since 2007. Now, you know, my background is actually in audio. But it was
like this kind of audio?
Yes, like this kind of audio.
Okay.
Like that's my profession.
Okay.
So
hopefully I don't screw up too much.
right. No, you're doing good. You're doing great. And but you know, being an engineer, like, and being able to like see how electricity combines, you know, how sound is then like represented in electric format, and that kind of just led me to physics. Like those frequencies and waveforms, that was like my jam right there. I liked that kind of stuff, and so I started studying physics just as a hobby, really, just my own interest. And in around 2007, and you know, I studied, you know, from general relativity to quantum mechanics, and there was just some things that just bothered me, like the double slit experiment and the explanation of that.
It bothered you?
Yeah, it did. I just didn't think that a single particle could like go through two slits. Like there was something didn't seem right to me about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, that caused me to start looking into kind of alternative scientists, you know, like Tesla and others, and that's what brought me to Walter Russell.
Yeah.
So
who's a colleague at Tesla, right?
Yeah. They knew each other, you know. And so at first, when I first found the Russell science, I was just like, this is too weird, it's too way out there, and I just moved on to the next scientist.
Same. I read Secrets of Light, and then I was like, okay.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that was the first one I did.
Okay.
Yeah, Secrets of Light.
You know? Yeah,
Secret
a couple
of
of years
Light.
ago, and I'm just like, this is too much.
Right. And so, but over the years, in my studies, I kept coming back to Walter Russell, and I would learn a little bit more, and I'd be like, wait a minute, yeah, that makes a little sense. And so I got into this pattern where the more that I looked into it, the more that I found, more that I said to myself, wait a minute, I think there's something here, like something that's really awesome. And the deeper I got into it, you know, I read the Universal One, which, you know, I would highly recommend, you know, so this is my Universal One copy, you know, and, you know, I read The Secret of Light, Atomic Suicide, you know, these, and then I found the University of Science and Philosophy here, like the
which is where we are.
Which is where we are, right, in Waynesboro, Virginia.
That's right.
And they opened this museum, and I came down to the homecoming. I think it was 2019. And met great people here, and it's just
been a couple of years.
Yeah. Okay. But it was great to, you know, from my own studies to then meet people to kind of bounce ideas off of, and, you know, get a deeper understanding. And I met people who were also, you know, into the science. So like, you know, I definitely, you know, there's the science, and then there's the philosophy. So
do you see those as separate?
So
I'm just curious.
Usually yes, those are separate, right? But that is the thing about Walter Russell that was just different than everything else that I studied, is that his philosophy directly is tied to his science. I don't even want to say tied because it makes it sound like they're two things. They're like one and the same.
Yeah.
Like,
That's what I've noticed since I've been here.
yeah. So it's like all one thing, you know.
And what is that thing he's trying to describe?
Right, right. Well, and the story goes, he was illuminated, and he, essentially got the download
Right.
of knowledge. Okay, and he was told he needs to bring this to the world, and that's exactly what he did. He just started writing it all down in books, and started spreading the word. And
What was his first book? You know, off the top of your head?
The Universal One.
Okay.
In 1926. Yeah.
So we're talking, he's been around. This isn't someone who just came.
No, it was 100 years ago. Was it 2023? Yeah, we're almost 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And
That's really interesting.
but the thing about it is that, like, the thing that pulled me in, I saw a copy of his periodic table of the elements. And as we, most people know, he's a little boxy periodic table.
Yeah.
Well, Walter Russell's periodic table was a curve, like a wavy curve. It looked like a sine wave that was like getting wider or higher amplitude. And I was like, what is this? What? And he's got the elements marked off on there, and then
I'll put it up so people can see what you're talking
yeah. I mean, I could show you the page, but it's probably better.
And I'll just add it later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I noticed on there were elements that said like unknown, and I checked later, and we have since found these elements that he predicted. He predicted elements that were below hydrogen and elements that were like higher than uranium. Like it's like what's, and so
Which is, for someone that doesn't know,
so
that's pretty big.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Like, I mean, it's essentially, he predicted more elements than were on the normal periodic table.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, they have found some of those elements. There's still elements that haven't been discovered that, in my opinion, are there, but we just haven't looked for them yet. Okay. So that drew me in. I said, if this guy can predict elements and they've been found,
He was right.
He's got to have some deep knowledge, And so I just started studying him more, and the more I studied, the more I learned, and I was like, this science, in my opinion, is better or more complete, more comprehensive than all than the other most mainstream theories that we have, like general relativity and quantum field theory. Those are like the two big pillars of current science right now.
Yeah.
Right. And like those two, they don't, so general relativity, deals with larger, we always think of it as dealing with larger, like galaxies, planets, that kind of thing. Quantum field theory dealing with small things, like, what we think of as particles and that kind of thing. So, and those two theories, they don't quite mix well. That's kind of what, current science is trying to fix. They're trying to get a theory of everything. Well, Mr. Walter Russell has a theory of everything, because with his theory, it's one comprehensive set of rules, and it works on all scales, whether it's, a planet or a galaxy, or whether it's an atom or, a particle, whatever it might be, it will work. And that's, to me, is fascinating.
I mean, that's like what they're looking for. That's what I've been trying to find, right? The theory of everything, in a sense, or unified.
Right. Yeah, like unified theory of everything.
Yeah,
right?
And it's here, and we have it.
And it's right here, and it's been here for years. Now, the funny thing is, when he wrote this stuff down, he took it to scientists. He's like, guys, look what I have. This is it, And they just, for whatever reason, they didn't accept him. They didn't accept it. I personally think it was because, he was coming from the point of view that, like, hey, I got this knowledge from God or from the universe. And so the scientists at the time were kind of like, what? Dude, whatever, get out of here, Or they probably
still do that sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, he sent books to people, and they probably started reading, and they were just like, "This is nonsense," or "I don't believe it," and just didn't even read it.
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Well, I thought there was a story about him sending a bunch of Universal. Was it Universal?
It was the Universal One. It was his first book. And I think he took like I don't know the exact numbers, so maybe 100 copies or something, and he sent it to like all the top scientists around the world. And so it was received well by some and not by others. There were some. It was a whole spectrum of reactions to what they read. Some people probably just didn't read it. Some people who did read it were like, maybe they didn't read it thoroughly or they didn't understand it, and some people were like, oh my God, this is amazing, right? Tesla read it. Now, as the story goes, I'm paraphrasing here, but Tesla said something like, you need to lock up this, knowledge, lock it away for 1,000 years, because that'll be the time when man has unfolded in his intellect enough to like receive this knowledge, that kind of thing.
Wow.
So it's like, wow. And that was Tesla saying
so
that?
If he said it.
Right. And Tesla's a smart dude, obviously, for those of you who don't know. Like our whole electrical system is based on his, patents, right? So like, he was one of the few who read it and realized it was amazing. But he was also, I guess, smart enough to know, and I guess he was right, because he was like, this is too good. Like, people won't be able to get this, man.
Yeah.
And I think maybe he was right, because like, even if the truth is sitting there if something great is sitting right in front of you and you can't quite understand it, well, you're going to just miss out on it. And I feel personally that that's kind of what Walter Russell's work is that it's amazing, and it's a theory of everything, what we're looking for. And it just needs people who are willing to delve into it and explore it on a deeper level than just, reading a couple pages here.
Surface level stuff.
On surface level, right. Because you really, and I'm here to tell you, as someone who has done both of the, I've read it on a surface level and I've read it at a deep level. And I can tell you, when you read it on a surface level, as I did, I was like, what is this? And I threw it to the side. So I can relate with people who have done that. But I'm here to also tell you, if you stick with it and you read through it, it's going to open up a world that is just incredible, because it truly is a comprehensive theory of everything. And the reason it's so incredible to me is that once you learn this, you will be able to see all of the things that we will be able to do that we currently can't do.
Which we just had a presentation on, right? We just
did a presentation.
Yeah.
And, gave an example, right?
You gave a lot of examples.
And right. And and even like, as Darren said, you could bring a PhD from a physics university to look at that, and they would be like, no, that's not possible. Or what's going on here? This is a trick or something, right?
Yeah, you must be fooling me.
You must be trying to fool me.
Like magic or
right.
something.
It's right. Because it doesn't conform with the current understanding of physics in like the academic traditional science way. But if he would have read all of Walter Russell's stuff, he would see why. Well, of course, that's what it would do, because that's what the theory says. So, I am very excited about his work, so much so that
you're here.
I'm here. And
right.
So maybe if can I shill a little something that I'm
go ahead. Absolutely.
So I am creating a YouTube channel.
Okay.
It's called 3D Frequency. And it's just the number 3, the letter D, frequency. Okay. And what I'm going to be doing is having short videos describing the Walter Russell concept in smaller pieces, so it's a little more easily digestible. And also, which I think is something will be unique, I will be putting up experiments, actual experiments, like the demo that we just saw,
which was mind blowing.
Which was mind blowing, right? It's great. But these are physical experiments that can be done. They can be repeated by anyone. Like in this experiment what we just saw, you can go out and buy these simple materials yourself and do it yourself to prove to yourself that it works. It's not some kind of trick or something like we didn't have some trick magnets up there or something, right? And so I'm going to start putting experiments like that on the YouTube channel to hopefully spread the word, and because when people, if they do these things, they will see the same observations
outside science.
There are
the current science.
Well, right. There are things, outside of the current science.
Right, which is hard for people to understand.
That's right.
That's someone who that might not have the highest certifications at this prestigious lab.
That's right.
We can still figure these things out. And I think that's one of the hard things about Walter Russell's work is that people will a lot of times dismiss something before they actually see what the substance is. And what I try to do on the podcast too is bring up new concepts that we're kind of understanding what is it that we're saying first before who is the one that's saying. And I think it is important, some credibility. There can be weird people out there, but
all kinds of people. Right.
But in essence, I think that Walter Russell, I'm actually curious if you could sum up his work in just a couple sentences.
Sure. So, well, all right. So I'm going to do it.
I see that brain churn.
I'm going to do it in two ways here. Okay. Because I just want to make it clear, Walter Russell has science and philosophy.
Right.
My YouTube channel, 3D Frequency, will be only the science. That's what I gravitate to. That's what I like. Having said that, I think there's something in the philosophy as well. But so in a nutshell, like I said, I want to do this 2 times. All right.
You just we'll go for it. Whatever you want to say.
Here's the big nutshell is that his philosophy drives his science. I think in order for me to get into detail, when you say sum it up, you mean sum up his theory or his work, or what do you mean?
Yeah, theory.
His theory. Okay.
I'm thinking kind of if I was to sum it up, let me give you an example.
Okay, go for it.
The universal one, I think, perfectly describes the general basis.
Yep.
One. That's huge because we can in science right now come to a conclusion as to a unified theory of everything.
Right.
And so I think the concept of the universal one and light, specifically the mind aspect and light, that's the part that I'm really curious if you want to jump into that, because that's what just kind of came up, because there's light and mind and God and
all right, here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to do one thing first, and I'll come back to
questions.
Yeah. No, I will come back to that.
Okay, sure.
So I'm going to sum up Walter Russell's scientific theory.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in his theory, there's kind of 3 major postulates that I've found. Number 1, everything is made out of light. Okay.
Yeah.
Number 2, that light can only be in 2 states. And those 2 states are either motion or stillness. Okay. And then number 3, there are only 2 forces in the entire universe. Force number 1 is gravitation. Force number 2 is radiation. That right there are kind of his postulates.
Yeah.
So you have this light that's in motion, because of these forces, and that creates all the matter that we see in the universe. Everything in the universe is made out of moving light. Okay? So
moving light.
Yes. That's right. And it's moving.
All is motion. Would that be accurate? Or not?
Yes. Everything in the universe that we see. There's a universe that we don't see. Okay? I'm going to come back to that with the whole everything is one and all that.
Sure.
Okay. But in terms of the science, science likes to make observations. We like to measure things and test things. So in terms of the universe that we can see and measure, it's all light and motion. And this motion has different frequencies because it's moving in waves. Now these waves and these different frequencies have different characteristics. As we all know, just like in music, you got low frequency, you got bass, you got a high frequency, you got treble. It sounds different. They're different characteristics. What Walter is saying is that the entire universe is like that it's all waves, and the different characteristics are just different frequencies of light. So like you have one frequency that's like a gas or has the characteristics of a gas versus another that has the characteristics of a metal. Okay. So, but once you understand that it's all just light, then you'll be able to control this light because, well, I don't want to get
to some extent, maybe,
but, well, the deeper, once you have the knowledge, you'll be able to control it to any extent you want. And that's, I can't say all of that in one, like,
yeah,
I'm not going to be able to say all that in like 5 minutes here or whatever.
Yeah.
But
it's way more complex.
It's
yes.
Yeah, it's deep.
I mean, he wrote a lot of books.
Yeah. And, but that's what I'm saying. Like, wouldn't it be worth it if we could control all matter to kind of make it do what we wanted it to do? That'd be awesome. Like,
so when you say that, what do you think the difference is between saying that and telekinesis? Like, is that the same thing? Because when I think controlling matter, I'm like, we can use the mind to move things. So how does that compare to that concept? Is it similar, not similar?
I think it is similar.
Okay.
I think that people might say, okay, this big hunk of metal is not going to go flying up in the air, but then we invented the airplane. Okay. That was with the mind that we invented that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of thing like Nikola Tesla, who, he made a little boat move around and people thought it was magic. It was because he had a remote control. He like invented this technology. People were like, that's magic. You're making something move and you're not like pushing it with your hand. He did that with his mind. Okay. He created that. And so it will just continue. We will continue to see things that you will think are incredible, like telekinesis or moving something. But in reality, it's just science. It's just like higher levels of understanding of how the universe works. Then you can manipulate it the way you want. That's the way I'm not here to say that it's telekinesis, like moving it with your mind, like in a way that's kind of, the typical what you think of telekinesis.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
I'm just relating it in my brain to something.
So right. I'm not going to say, oh,
okay,
yes, we'll all be able to do that.
If that's it, it's it. I'm just curious.
Right. But I do think if people study his stuff, we will be able to do things that we will think are so incredible, like they're so beyond what we can do right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's like, and there are things that like, before like the internet happened, like when people didn't even know what the internet was, they couldn't even imagine like something like a social media like Facebook or something like that. Like
or a cell phone.
Or a cell phone, right?
Yeah.
How awesome was, Facebook or how awesome is a cell phone? Well, what I'm saying to you is that, and that was just before the internet was even made. And so what I'm saying here is that with Walter's stuff, we're going to be able to make this amazing thing like the internet that we don't even know of yet. But then once we have that amazing thing, we're going to be able to make something even more amazing that like, so we can't even, when I say we can't even imagine it, that's what I mean. Like we can't even imagine what it is, but I know it will be awesome,
So that's why Tesla said 1,000 years.
Well, right. That's right.
So far ahead.
That's right.
And he's just like, he has all this.
Yeah. So, okay. So let me go back and circle back to your original question. Because I like to describe the science. And that was a very short, just nutshell of the science.
Yeah.
Just kind of like basic principles.
Well, that's why you guys do presentations here. And
right. Well, I will say one more thing, just to give your audience like an understanding that, so Walter's, he sees elements more like tones. Like if you think of the piano, you've got the octave, you got like, the same, tones, but then you just go up an octave. It's the same tones, just higher end pitch. And he's saying that elements are like that. They're tonal. So they can be actually manipulated because they're not actually like set in stone. They're not like, these little balls of, things that can't be changed. It's more like, oh, I hit this note A But if I tune the A string, I could make it go up in pitch or down in pitch. And if you do it far enough, you're all the way to the next note. So for him, it would be like going from one element all the way to the next element. Okay. And so once we can control that, we'll be able to control matter and make it go where we want it to go. So,
and the practical application could be in like transportation. It could be in different things.
Fuel that is renewable and is not extractive of resources, because we'll be able to change. If we could change sand into a fuel, then like there's abundant sand. And what he's saying is like, we'll be able to change pretty much anything to anything else. So it's all because it's all the same thing. And once you know how that same thing moves and operates, then you know how to kind of work it.
And you were talking about alchemy before.
Right.
And so alchemy was like the old kind of way of thinking of maybe what we're talking about right now.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I don't even like to use that term because, yes, that was kind of the old connotation. It has like negative connotations. Yeah. It's like, I'm going to turn this lead to gold. And it's really not that at all. This is something that is entirely different. This is a science that, it's a theory that gives you a construct to be able to understand what matter is. And once you know that, then you can see how to manipulate it.
Okay.
But yes, okay. If I'm saying, I can change one substance to another, then what's stopping me from turning, lead to gold, right? That's alchemy,
classic,
right? Classic alchemy, right?
Yeah.
So, yes, I'll just leave it at that. You guys, you hear what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah.
So,
one thing that really fascinated me about his work was I was looking at the charts, because this is like, the museum is huge.
Yeah.
This is huge.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So, and if I can get a shot, I'll put it in, or a picture or something of what we're looking at. Yeah. But I saw a chart in the science room, and it was, and I could be wrong here, but it was talking about gravity dividing into pairs. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that concept, I'm trying to wrap my perception around that.
Right. So that the idea. So okay, I want to go back and answer your first question,
sure,
and then come to answer that. Sorry, I'm jumping around.
No. I like that. You can remember so much more than even I do sometimes.
There's a logical reason for this. Okay,
sure.
So Walter's philosophy says that everything is one, and he says that everything is the universe. Like, there's different names for it. There's God, there's the universe, whatever you want to call it. But he's saying that that is everything. Okay. And it's all just one thing. Now, remember when I said there's light in motion and there's light in stillness? Well, Walter's philosophy is that the light in motion is everything that we see all around us, but the light that's not moving, that is God. That is the universe. That is the timeless. So if you have something in motion, like in wave, like imagine like a pool, right? It's totally still. You throw a rock in, you get the waves motion going, okay? Well, it's the stillness that he says is what causes things to happen in the universe. He says it's like, he calls it the mind of God, okay? This still light. And so what he says is that the mind of God starts thinking, and what it does is it takes the one substance that is light and it polarizes it. Okay, this is the splitting into two that you were talking about. So, and it splits it in such a way that, let's see, the way I would describe this is that there's an equilibrium, but then it kind of breaks that balance. So imagine if you had two tanks of air and they were connected with a hose. Well, and you have like a little air pump on the hose where you could like turn on the air pump and it would suck air out of one tank into the other tank, okay? So you started at equilibrium, but once you turn on that pump, it's sucking air, and so now you have a polarization where you have a more air in one tank and less air in the other tank. That's the separation. That's the polarization. Okay. And once that happens, so you turn off that motor and release the valve, what's going to happen? Motion is going to start because it's going to want to rebalance back to equilibrium. And so what he's saying is that it's the mind of God that causes this polarization, okay? And then that polarization is what's going to start movement in the universe. So,
wow,
that is
that's a lot.
That's it. Yeah, there it is. Okay, which is, I think, why his concept, people didn't. I think some people just couldn't accept that. You're like, no, you're telling me it's the mind of God moving things around? Come on, man! Like, a lot of scientists don't want to go there, right?
Because you're combining kind of science and spirituality, and that has been separated for so long.
Exactly. And it's, so that's why Russell's stuff is unique. It combines it, and I think it's the most comprehensive kind of description of the universe. At least in my studies of quantum physics, general relativity, all these different, even alternative sciences, Walter's science is the most comprehensive. It explains everything.
I think the good point to make there is that it's not only comprehensive, because there's a lot of science out there that is just complex to be complex. I kind of feel like.
Oh, I would agree.
So
yeah, they're lost.
Right. So what we're talking about is a science. I would say that his science has a wholeness to it that I think is missing in general, and I think that can translate from science to, that's what his philosophy is about too.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of science out there that's, in my opinion, lost in mathematics. And sometimes they make the horrible mistake of thinking that the mathematics are real. Like that they're, whatever equation.
They are reality in a sense versus they're a symbol for reality. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, yes, exactly. So like, for example, the idea of spacetime, general relativity, this was brought up not even by Einstein. I think it was Minkowski. Sorry if I'm saying the name wrong, but like he was another mathematician that worked with Einstein, and Einstein was like, hey, we've got length, you've got the three coordinates of up, down, left, right, or length, width, and breadth, and Minkowski was like, hey, we can put time as like a fourth dimension. You got those three dimensions. Let's put time in there as a fourth dimension, and because of that, we can mathematically, that way we can use it in equations to describe gravity. The general theory of relativity.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just because he had that idea to make to put space and time together in an equation, that doesn't mean that we live in space time, like.
Which is what a lot of people
will say to you, oh, space-time bends.
Yeah.
And, it's like, no, that's just a way of mathematically describing what we see in nature, but it is not the reality of nature.
So how do you see it then? Or how does...
So the way Walter Russell sees it, well, like I said before, that everything is light. Either it's the still light, which is kind of like the mind of God, if you will. And then there's the light in motion. And
right there, does the formless Tao and Taoism, have you studied Taoism? Would you say that stillness is kind of related?
There are many parallels with Walter Russell's work and many other philosophies.
Yeah.
Now, because I am definitely on the side of science, I am not as well read in philosophy.
Sure.
So I'm not the person to ask about that.
Okay.
Really.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Hey, that's great. I'm glad you told me that.
I don't want to sit here and try to make something up that sounds good, because I really don't. I don't know. But there's a lot of people here that you will meet that are well read in many philosophies that you should talk to.
I hope I get a chance to.
So I stick with the physics and the science of it.
Yeah. So you were talking about curved space and how that was incorrect.
Right. So.
Sorry to interrupt.
So no, that's all right. So I would say, or what Walter Russell says is that space doesn't curve. It's the light. It's an illusion of motion. That the light is curving. And he says that that's due to the density of wherever that light has to reproduce its. So okay, wait, I should hold on. So in his theory, light doesn't travel. It's there's a wave, and he describes it as, you can think of a cubic wave field. It's a cube, and all of the motion, it stays within this one cube. But there's a bunch of cubes all out over the place, okay? And this light can be reflected or actually reproduced from one cube to the next cube. And like I did today, you can imagine a wave in like a football stadium of people, where they do the wave, everyone's like standing up and sitting down, right? So the illusion of motion that we get is that there's a wave traveling around the stadium, but when in reality it's just people. Those people are not moving; they're not traveling around the stadium. They're just actually standing up and sitting down. Okay, and you can think of each one of those people as like a wave field, and there's a wave field, and then another one, and another one.
Would you say everything else too?
So, well,
is that different?
So okay, well, hold on. Let me finish just the analogy is that, the people don't move. So the wave fields don't move. The light stays in its seat, if you will, like the people staying in its seat.
Here, show us.
Yes, I know. Yes, I know. Yes, see? All right, well,
wait, what's happening here?
Wait. See, he's
just sticking something in water, and I'm like, wait.
I'll bring that up right after I finish this. Okay, so, but the analogy is that, the people don't travel from seat to seat to seat.
Yeah.
They stay in their own seat or their own little cube, if you will. Okay. And they go through a cycle of standing up and sitting down. That's their wave motion. Up, down, cycle, up, down. And so they're like pumping up and down, up and down. And that's how the whole universe is that there are these cubic wave fields of light that are pumping through these cycles. But there is an illusion that, when that motion is reproduced in the next wave field and the next wave field, that the light is traveling, but the light is not traveling. So we think of light traveling like from the sun to the earth in 8 minutes.
Or the speed of light. Like, how would you describe the speed of light?
The speed of light. So what the speed of light is, that is the speed at which light reproduces itself in the next wave field. Okay, from wave field to wave field. And so
that one is another one that really is intriguing.
So let's see. So I guess to circle back to the gravity and the bending of light, basically, so the illusion of motion what we will see with our eyes is that light will bend when there is, when it crosses from one density to a different density. And so when he was sticking something in water, it was
he had like a cookie or a pretzel or something, and he was putting it in water.
So it was like a pretzel stick. Imagine like a pencil. Okay, imagine like a pencil. If you had a glass of water, you take a pencil and you put it in there, so there is a difference in density. The water and the air above the water are different densities, okay? But when you put the pencil in there, what you'll see at the border from the water to the air, that when that pencil, is crossing that different density, it looks like the pencil is broken. Like you kind of look at it from the side, and it's an optical illusion of the light bending, or in this case, the pencil bending. Okay, the pencil doesn't really bend, but we perceive it as that it bends.
Yeah.
So that's the same thing with, like with space. Space-time, it doesn't bend. It's actually the light that looks like it bends, and it's only because of the density. Like, if you're near the sun is way more dense than, the space around the sun. Okay. So, when light goes by that area, it's going to look like it bends. And it's a gradient. It's not like the sun just stops and then space just starts. There's like a gradient of density, just like, and same with the Earth, like like our atmosphere gets less and less dense the farther you go out. There's a gradient of density, and so light will always be bending through those various gradients of density around mass.
So light does bend.
So right, so right, it's an illusion of motion, but yes, that's the illusion that we'll see, is that the light will bend around different densities, or Walter calls it potential, different potential. I'm using the term density because it just like that's something more people can understand or whatever. But he says light actually forms in different potential. So there's higher potential and lower potential. Something, for example, like the Earth will be a higher potential than the atmosphere around it. That's a lower potential. Like a solid is higher potential than a liquid, and a liquid is higher potential than a gas. Okay, to give an example. And so light will bend through all of that in different ways.
Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting. All right. Well, I want to respect your time.
Yep. All right.
Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's.
I appreciate it. I know it's going to be a lot for people to take in, but I think it's really fascinating.
It is, and I'm sorry. I mean, like I can go deep into it, and I know that like it's hard when you don't have anything to hold on to, or to compare it to, because it really is a different kind of theory. Okay, it's totally different, but it works.
Yeah.
So I would encourage people to
just look up the work, right?
Look up the work,
look at the charts, read the books,
read the books, and really do it. If you're, I mean, like for those of you who really want to learn something new about the world, he literally, like in Atomic Suicide, he literally has experiments you can do in here yourself, and you will see what he's talking about works. So
fascinating. All right, well, let people know.
Awesome.
Where can they find you?
So
what
right,
do you got going on?
Right. So,
So what do you got going on for you?
Yeah, man, you guys hit me up on Twitter, 3D Frequency. I'm on Twitter at 3D Frequency, or my YouTube channel will be coming out. 3D Frequency.
And for those of you that are on YouTube.
Right.
I'll put that in the description when it's up.
Okay, yeah, great. But yeah, mainly Twitter right now is my main. If you want to email me, it's fine too. 3dfrequency@gmail.com. If you got any questions or whatever, I'm sure I love talking about this stuff. Yeah. So 3dfrequency@gmail.com or at 3dfrequency on Twitter.
All right, we'll put that in the description. If you're just listening on Spotify, Apple Podcast, that'll be in the show notes instead of the description. Kind of the same thing, but. That'll do it again. Let's get it.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot to you too, man. Universal Games. Subscribe.
All right. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. And if you did, consider hitting the subscribe button, sticking around for more episodes of Universal Game. We're back every week for another episode, exploring the nature of reality, the nature of the game that we call the universe. And if you want to be friggin' awesome and really support the podcast, highly recommend you check out the Upside Down book, which is now right side up, 10 Secrets of Awakening. I try to keep the podcast as ad-free as I can, but, we got to keep the wheels running on this thing somehow. If you buy the book, it really supports the podcast and keeping things going here, and I very much appreciate it. So it's available on Amazon as a paperback or ebook. Other than that, we will see you in the next episode, and until then, peace.